Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to break down what Instant On PLM looks like, how Fusion Manage changes deployment expectations, and how Fusion or Vault customers can connect design to delivery faster than ever. I think we've all lived through this era, right, of installers, product keys, long wait times, multiple reboots. That was normal because the entire experience depended on infrastructure, like servers and hardware. And PLM has historically lived in that same model. But today, we expect things to just work. No setup, no hardware, no waiting. That expectation has finally reached PLM and it changes everything. Now, before we get into the instant on side of things, let's ground everyone in the basics. PLM still solves the same core challenges as it did years ago: change management, quality workflows, supplier collaboration, and cross-team visibility. What's improved is how fast you can get there. So this diagram illustrates the reality for most organizations today. Your company likely has multiple departments, and each one of them likely uses their own systems and software to manage their day-to-day operations. So collaboration between each of these departments likely involves a mix of email communications, spreadsheets, and homegrown databases and tools. So seamless integration is a must. So whether it's your PDM, ERP, CRM, or other systems, the goal is the same. What is that goal? To go from disconnected systems to connected, traceable systems and data. Now, why is this important? Let's just review the typical life cycle of a product, from the idea all the way to delivery and eventually end of life. So as with any product, there's an initial investment, whether it's a variant, a new product, or a different configuration. And then, of course, over time, through market entry, you'll see revenue, because that's why you're bringing the product to market. But along the way, there's all these things that impede progress and slow you down. Could be quality issues, could be launch delays, changing customer requirements. And we can't necessarily eliminate them, but we can improve on them. So the goal of implementing a PLM system is to reduce that total investment up front, improve time to profitability, and increase your total revenue gained. So put another way, here are the key business outcomes that PLM helps you achieve: reduce time to market, lower product development costs, developing new and personalized products for your customers, and maintaining that high quality. Now, the old reality in terms of the instant on nature, this is what we've probably all seen, this graphic of the iceberg, right? Servers, firewalls, database installs, complex configuration, IT availability, long deployment cycles. Traditional PLM meant building infrastructure before you could even touch the system. That stretched timelines, increased cost, and created IT bottlenecks. You didn't start solving problems until months after purchase. Well, Fusion Manage flips the script. There's nothing to install, no hardware to manage, and you can access it the same day you purchase it. So the deployment cycle becomes configuration, not installation. Now, for Fusion customers, this is the truly instant on path. Once you purchase the Fusion Manage entitlement, your design data is already integrated, and you can start using PLM capabilities immediately. Now, what does this mean for future expansion for your business? Well, today, Fusion is Autodesk's industry cloud for manufacturing. It's comprised of distinct cloud solutions on their platform: Fusion for design and make capabilities, Fusion Manage for PLM capabilities, and Fusion Operations for MES, or manufacturing execution systems. These offerings are built on an API first principle And these APIs are on Autodesk platform services and are used to connect to all of these specific capabilities you see here on the screen. Now, what about Vault users? Well, for them, the connection is still fairly instant on. You configure the link between Vault and Fusion Manage. Then you can start using items in Vault to pass information downstream to Fusion. Now, Vault is still a traditional on-premise system, and there are use cases where the on-premise solution still is a viable path to take, especially for those who've already invested down that path. But once again, we have removed some of those barriers in terms of being able to then add on PLM capabilities through this instant on connector and configuration. Now, what does that mean in terms of your future expansion capabilities? Fusion Manage is built for integration. So with an open API, you can just connect PLM to your other business systems and extend the value of your product data to other departments and people. So for example, a typical scenario we see is to connect PLM to your ERP and share product data across systems and roles for greater visibility and access of business critical details in more work streams for greater efficiencies. Now, what does this mean in practice? This is literally how it works. When you get your entitlement, you log into your Autodesk account, click the access button, and you're in the system. So what used to take weeks is now minutes. And what you see on the right are all of the standard workspaces that are set up and configured out of the box and have relationships built between all of those workspaces. Now, in terms of what this looks like in the system, it's a matter of going in and setting up your users, assigning those users groups and roles to determine the permissions and the different areas of the system that they'll be able to have access to. Next, you'll go to the workspace fields in all the different workspaces. There may be a few things where you have a different terminology or word that you use for that function. So you can update that, change the terminology. You can even add a few new fields that you feel like, okay, this is something that's not there out of the box, but it's something that we track internally. And then of course, for Fusion users, there you can configure a little bit of the pick list workspaces and connecting those to the different areas of the system. Then you're going to go through the workflow templates. This is how you do business. For example, quality inspections. You probably have a list of tasks, a list of things that you do for each inspection. So you go through and you build that template, fill it out so that the workspace is now configured to how you do work. Same with design reviews, change orders, and task templates. So fairly simple. Now, for the Vault users, going back to this, all right, what is needed? After you purchase and your tenant is configured, you're now simply going into the ADMS and you're setting up the service account. Then on the client side, you're going into your the Vault client, pointing it to your tenant, and then you're mapping the workspaces from Fusion Manage to your Vault items there. And then you can even configure triggers in your life cycles that you may use within Vault. So there you go. So before adopting a system like this, likely you had a CAD change that was emailed to somebody, a revision spreadsheet that was updated manually. Quality was notified days later. Supplier gets a PDF via email. So we all go through the process, but when they're managed and connected, you have more traceability, more accountability, and more visibility. So you can go from something like this, which you see of spreadsheets and checklists and paper, to this, a more modern digitized tool set. And this is the key to achieving that business growth. So afterwards, you have changes initiated from Fusion. You have a PLM workflow that auto routes to the different stakeholders that need to be notified. Quality sees this instantly. Supplier receives a secure cloud access to the information. So this is the human side of instant on. The moment a design change happens, everyone who needs to know is informed. So let's go through an example workflow of change management. It's the most common one. And we could start with something that's very common, like a problem report, which if there's a problem, it may necessitate us making a change in the design. So that would lead to a change request, which would lead to a change order, and then revising the affected parts or components of that. So reversing this, you could see now that we have that audit trail of why did this change occur? Oh, well, it was because this change order dictated these different changes that need to happen. Oh, well, where did that come from? Well, it's because there was a request that was tied to the problem report of what's happening in the design. So an example of this would be, most common one I remember experiencing in industry was engineering pre-build, right? You've already determined what your components are going to be, the makeup of your product, and now you're starting to get those components in and build the product to see, okay, is everything fitting? Is everything functioning as it needs to? And typically during that process, you're going to find a few issues. So what would that look like in day-to-day life? You'd go through, you would see all of the problem reports that are occurring within the system. If you are then documenting one, you go in, you fill out the information. You can even add things like images to show what's happening on the manufacturing floor. This better communicates to the rest of the team what the actual issue is. And then, of course, there's a workflow associated with that to then approve that, yes, we acknowledge this is a problem and we should move on to the next step to do something about it, whether it needs to be escalated or whether it's not something that needs to be looked at. In this case, it would change to a change request. So same thing, you see all of the records of the different change requests that are happening within the organization, but then in the record itself, you simply fill out the information, its priority, the reason that you're requesting the change, what it's related to, and there's a problem report tied directly to what this change request is stemming from. Then once again, there's a workflow associated with it. And each of these states are things that can be configured in terms of who gets notified, when they get notified, if there's any escalation clauses that you have, that it's part of your normal process. And then similar, once the change order once the change request is approved, the change order to then compile and configure, all right, well, what is the work that needs to be done in order to make this change? It could be a combination of changing a model, could be a combination of just changing a drawing. Maybe there's some related documentation that needs to be updated as part of this process. And once again, everybody can know where we are at in that process of the change order. And they could see it visually and see it very clearly across all organizations. So why not hear from customers who've implemented PLM within their own businesses in different industries? So yes, we see automatic systems here, the automotive industry. We definitely understand the amount of changes and scale that that industry has to deal with. So in their case, they used Autodesk Cloud PLM to help improve their change management processes and communication between all the departments. So that brought everybody to the table. So that's their feedback from their industry. You may say, okay, well, we're not automotive. Well, let's go to a few other industries. For Spirax Group, they, brought on Autodesk PLM as a way to communicate and collaborate across their global organization. They had lots of different departments, a lot of external suppliers, and Autodesk PLM helped them improve the data visibility and driven standardization while being able to increase their productivity. More on the consumer product side of things, Woodway leveraged PLM as a way to change the way that they communicated and shared data between departments with their vendors, reducing the number of errors before shipping so that they can get more product out the door. We hear these stories all the time, whether it could be a manufacturing constraint, it could be a design constraint, it could be a supply chain constraint. There's lots of different things that affect your business, and these tools give you visibility to be able to react more quickly and make better decisions. And then in the industrial machinery side of things with compressors. So this group was able to adopt it and see benefits there as well, especially in regards to traceability. And last but not least, a lot of times we don't think of PLM in the context of architecture and construction, but think of how many manufacturers where their products are part of a construction project. Do you think communication is still an important factor in their success and whether or not they get chose to bid for the project or whether their product gets spec'd on a project? Absolutely. And that's why these tools can help in those realms here. With Renair's, they're able to continue focus on their path of digitalization and digital transformation within their business. So, in summary, Instant On PLM enables you to have faster onboarding, have clear visibility across bill of materials, changes, and suppliers, have real-time updates from your CAD to your PLM and PDM systems, cloud access across departments, cleaner process execution versus email-based workflows. So this is where the value shows up. So when it becomes Instant On, every team involved in the product lifecycle can benefit immediately. And you get that traceability without the overhead, the process alignment without friction, and collaboration without slowdowns. So just like software installations disappeared, PLM deployment has evolved. And Fusion Manage brings PLM into the world of instant access and continuous improvement. So with that, we'll go ahead and open it up for any questions.
Thank you, Bruce, for this wonderful presentation. We don't have a question at the moment, and I would like to remind everyone about our upcoming webinar next week. We'll have a throwback Tuesday for the timeless power of AutoCAD, and this one will be at 11 a.m. as well. Also, I wanted to remind you all that on the top of your screen, you'll find buttons to request a demo, check our products and services. And also there is an engagement tab. And if you click on that, you will find a survey that will really, really help us if you fill it out. So we can keep improving every time and give you more valuable content every time. So if we don't have further questions, then I would like to thank Bruce and thank everyone for attending. I don't know if you have something else, Bruce.
No, as always, here to answer any questions you have to help you look at your business and look at your goals and how we can help you achieve them through different solutions. And again, thank you for coming, and hope you found this informational and helpful.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Bruce. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Take care.